Yeah, so there were a lot of adult role models in my life when I was graduating high school and theoretically becoming an adult that worked themselves almost to death for companies that did not love them back, that did not show them that same loyalty where the rubber met the road. And now the performative work heroism that is often rewarded, it's not only rewarded, but that also places a lot of pressure on other employees in the workplace to emulate that behavior, as if that is what everyone should do.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the nature of our business, we constantly have to rethink what we're doing and how we're doing it, because digital media and advertising changes radically about every 30 days. So we've always had to understand there's going to be new things, there's new ways to think about things. And if you do stuff the same way with that institutional inertia and momentum that just sort of makes you do things the same way all the time, then not only will you fall behind, but the quality of your work and how good it works for your clients will suffer as well. So we've applied that thinking to our working lives. So when we think about the cultures that reward performative work heroism, it's entirely by choice. We don't have to do it. We don't have to act like that. And we can, it is possible to have a business where you focus on the quality of working life and you try to make it a good place to work, not with like pizza parties and ping pong tables, but actual real, you can come here and you can work. And then when you're done, you can put it down and you can go be the rest of your human that you are. And the return, the response, the feedback that we've gotten from the staff at every step of the way has been, it makes me feel great. I feel more rested and focused when I come to work. And the output has been just as good, if not better, as it has ever been. We started messing around with this in 2021. And after the pandemic began, we went fully remote. In 2021, we said, let's give ourselves a week off during the summer for a summer break. And then let's give everybody a half day off for the rest of the summer every week and just see how that goes. It went great. Everybody loved it. And 2021 was our best year ever. So that was good motivation to push it forward.
So you started this extra time off with 4 hours per week. So you're giving somebody a half day off each week in addition to their usual 2 days off. I mean, that sounds incremental, but how big of a deal was that?
Well, it was a very big deal. Internally, we often try and experiment with things, so it didn't feel super momentous and like we were shaking off the dust and really doing something radically different for us. But the day-to-day and week-by-week impact for our employees was significant. They felt like just by having an extra 4 hours a week, they could start moving their non-work stuff that you have to do just to exist as a human and start doing it when they wanted to do it as opposed to when they had to do it. And that made a really big difference. And when we got done at the end of the summer and we shut it off and we gave everybody a couple of weeks to think about it, and then we asked everyone what they thought, knowing that the effect on the business had been hugely positive, and that our work was great and we were actually doing more work, it almost seemed like, and able to get to things that would have been a more of a press earlier. After 2 weeks, we came back and talked to everyone about it, and universally, it was a very positive experience for everyone and they really loved it.
So wait a minute. So wait a minute. From the company's perspective, though, you actually saw increased productivity and more work getting done, even though people were working now 36 hours a week instead of 40.
Yes.
How revolutionary.
And that tracks with other big organizations that can track things in a super granular, like modern productivity economy sort of way. Microsoft Japan tried this, I think it was in 2018 or 2019. They instituted for, I think it was 6 months or maybe a year, a 4-day work week. And at the end of it, the result was productivity had increased by 40%. But then they abandoned it.
Why does that happen?
Because of that institutional inertia and the pressure that corporate and business culture impugns upon you, of that you just have to do things the way they've always been done. Now, when you look at there are several countries that are subsidizing trials of 4-day work weeks for companies in their countries. So the United Kingdom is doing that. Ireland is doing that. Iceland has done that for a couple of years now. And the response is always productivity is up, worker satisfaction is up, job satisfaction is up, and just generally everybody feels better.
So we're kind of like a rubber band in some ways, though, aren't we? Because if a company does so well by going to a 4-day work week, but then they say, okay, well, let's scrap that now and go back to the way it always has been, 5 days a week, 40 hours. This goes back to what you wrote in the blog post saying that the rules are entirely imaginary. We made them up. And I guess you could tack on to the end of that sentence. It is hard for us to undo that wiring.
It is. And part of that has to do with cognitive bias and things that agree with our priors and understanding the world as we have always known it to be. Trying to understand the world in a way that is different from how you have always understood it is difficult. And yeah, I got some emails when that blog post came out from business associates that, you know, partners or people I've worked with or that I just know professionally. And a lot of them said, boy, like, I'm so glad you're doing this. And I'm happy that someone is out there, and I wish I had the courage to try that. These are other business leaders. And I would say, you know, it's not super easy. Like, you have to figure out the logistics of how it works, but it's absolutely worth trying. Here's a book, here's an article, like, let me give you some, so let me arm you with resources so you can really think deeply about how to do this for your organization. And honestly, like, we've been doing this now for a month. The effect is as positive as we thought it would. This year is shaping up to be even better than 2021, which is great. And I didn't have to have that be the case in order for me to think this was successful. I didn't need to, there's a thing a lot of companies did with the pandemic when they went all remote, and then they tried to extract a price from their workers for working from home. And it was like, you got to be more productive because you don't have to commute. And that just feels gross to me.
Well, like you said, too, that's performative work, isn't it?
It is.
It's look how hard I'm working. Look how many hours I'm putting in. Aren't I great? It doesn't matter what I'm getting done, but look at how much I'm working.
That is that strain of dehumanization and degradation of labor in the face of capital that says, I don't care how you feel, you have to fit this mold, as if working from home isn't work. And especially during the pandemic, which was so difficult when people had to think about childcare and school and a global pandemic that was really sort of just an ambient existential threat to everyone. And that's a lot to deal with. So to say, okay, you can work from home, but then to say, now I want you to work 2 or 4 more hours a day, or it's got to be more than it was when you were in the office, that it feels gross, and it's not a thing I'm interested in doing.
And so you mentioned that you've heard from other executives, people at other companies who say that they wish they had the courage. Do you get the sense after writing this blog post that you are changing some minds, though, and maybe making things better in other workplaces?
I don't know that I would paint that direct of a picture, but I think that when there are examples of different ways to do good things out in the world, it gives people an opportunity to look at it and see themselves in it. And if someone can say, look, I tried this, we built a good place to work, that it feels good to work there, and we didn't have to sacrifice the excellence of our work or the structure of how we go about our business. What we do for our clients doesn't suffer at all. We can do those two things, don't have to be mutually exclusive. They can happen at the same time. You can focus on the quality of your employees' working lives, and that doesn't have to be at the expense of how your company does.
Okay, so if this helps to maybe convince another business manager out there, so we talked about how you did the incremental step of the extra 4 hours a week off last summer. Things went well. And so now starting in this year, you have gone to a 4-day work week where employees, I guess, are working 32 hours a week. And you're saying that this is already lining up, as far as you can track, that this looks like it's going to be your best year, better than last year, which was a great year for you guys. And that you're actually in a position where you're hiring right now and work is expanding. So for those who might be sitting on the fence, this has gone, it sounds like, swimmingly well in the early going, at least here.
It has, and I recognize that not every business is gonna be able to take to it as easily as we do. It was easy for us to shift to remote because we had some remote staff already. It was easy for us to do this because we're relatively small. There's a benefit to being the leader of a small business, in that you can just you can rule by by fiat, right? And
Yeah.
like sometimes that's very rarely, it seems like that's done to the benefit of the employees. But in this case, I could just say, we're doing this, we're going to try it. And the experience that we've had is so good that I would encourage other people to at least think about it. And I think you've talked a bit on your show about the Great Resignation and that people are leaving their jobs. And I saw a recent one where it wasn't that they're just quitting and not working, it's that they are finding better places to work, things that suit them more completely. I think you could find yourself being quite competitive in the employer market by being able to offer a set of things like what we managed to offer as a relatively small business. We fully pay health insurance. There a lot of time off, and now a 4-day work week. All of that is really built into the structure of, hey, we're a small shop, we want to be competitive. That makes us competitive in the marketplace. And I think for other companies, even if you have to boil it down to bare economic or statistical standards for it to be something that would satisfy you, there's a lot of evidence that says that this is where work is going. This is representative of the future of work. And if you get out in front of it and try and go through the wall first, then it gives you an opportunity to have a competitive advantage over others in your industry.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I do want to find out, though, because I know that not everything is roses ever. What was the biggest challenge with going to the 4-day work week?
I think the biggest challenge for us has been trying to maximize the time that everyone has and trying to rebalance what your week worth of meetings looks like, because we're in client service. We've got to talk to each other a lot about the work that's in progress, and we've got to talk to the clients about the work that we're doing. So I think probably the biggest lift for us was looking at what a normal week looked like in terms of meetings with clients, meetings internally, how much time that took, and trying to figure out, okay, this meeting by default is always an hour. Could we make that a half-hour meeting? This meeting, we do this twice a month. Could we do this once a month? And really like understanding where in that time we could trim the fat so that people could have more time dedicated to like actually doing work and not being in meetings, because that's always a struggle for everybody. But then also guaranteeing that we were as available to our clients as we had been in the past, and that there wasn't a part of it that was suffering. And part of the reason for the pilot program was to try that out, was to understand if we made 2 days a week where there were no meetings and then everyone had a half day off, could we fit everything into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? And a little bit of trial and error, but we've ended up figuring it out. So I think that just the logistics of what it would look like is the biggest hump, the biggest conceptual hill that people are going to have to climb to understand how it might work. But once you sit down and you start mapping out what some possible scenarios would look like, whether your office would only be open 4 days a week, or if you would stagger the time off, if you have enough staff to do it so that you're open Monday through Friday, but just some people, everybody has off 1 day in the week, and some are on Monday and some are on Friday. Once you start working that out, it demystifies it and makes it feel much more possible.
I like that you broke all of that down like that, though, because I have had situations in the past where I did have that extra bit of time given to me in a week. Unfortunately, no one discouraged me from continuing to work on that day, that extra time, because my remit didn't change at all. We still need all of this out of you. And if that means you've got to work on that day, then so be it. And by the way, we may still be calling you on that day, and we may still have meetings set up on those days. And so really, it's not a day off.
No, it's not. And there really does need to be institutional buy-in from the leadership, from the leadership in the organization to say, whatever day off a week you have, that is off. And there will be a settling period where you've got to figure out how that works, what it looks like, what does one person need to hand off to another before they leave at the end of the week, or when they come in at the beginning of the week. But you can figure it out. And saying everyone has a 4-day work week and then doing what happened to you is not really leadership commitment. It's not really a real commitment to the idea from the business. You have to do the work to figure out how to make it work, but it is absolutely possible and you can absolutely do it.
I want to ask you this. So Josh, your employees are happier. The business has never done better. Do you worry somewhere in the recesses of your mind that maybe some of this is due to this is new, it's fresh, it's exciting. These people are motivated because there's something new at work. Might they kind of fall back a little bit in that productivity as time goes?
I think that's something that's always a possibility when
Mhm.
anytime you try something new in the structure or the culture of your workplace. And I think that's why we like to say that at Swash Labs, creativity and social science come together and make good things happen. And in this case, part of the social science thing that's imprinted in the Swash Labs DNA is that we are constantly experimenting and we're constantly interrogating whether how something is being done is the right way to do it.
Mhm.
So you have to be self-aware enough and you have to have the discipline to once a month or every quarter to check in with everybody and say, okay, functionally, how is this working?
Mhm.
What are the complaints? Like, what are the rough edges? Like, help us understand what tweaks we could make to how we're doing this so that it stays successful for everyone. We had a meeting just like that this week, and as we talked about it with the senior leadership on the staff, we figured out, oh, we need to move like one meeting from here and just rearrange where it happens in the week, and that'll make everything go easier. So we did that. It
Okay.
wasn't a wholesale, we did this for 3 weeks and this part didn't work, so we're throwing it out. It
Yeah.
was, we're going to really commit to trying this. So let's have those regular check-ins and really try as objectively as we can assess how it's going and whether it's working.
Well, even if you did have that worry that, maybe after the newness wears off, that people, sort of start to slack a little bit, the same could be said of if you're still at that 5-day work week. I know plenty of people who work 5 days a week who really aren't giving their all when they're at work because they're exhausted. So, I mean, the same thing can happen in that setup as well. I want to ask you here because obviously the pandemic has been a horrible thing in so many ways, but good things can come out of bad too. How much did the pandemic help to sort of rattle this into existence here because you had to sort of rethink everything?
Yeah, it challenged everything we knew about what business looks like all the way up and down, right? And that's everything from supply chains to business culture to public health, like all of that was brought into real focus. And I think the pandemic has been terrible, but a thing that happened in American business specifically, and I'm sure this is happening elsewhere, but I live here and I can speak to that.
Mhm.
There has been a lot of questioning and a lot of soul searching about, like, if we're going to go back to the way things were before, do we want to? Was it good? Like, was that the way it ought to be? And it gave businesses the opportunity to question not just businesses, but also employees. And that's a really important part here. It gave everyone a chance to say, is this does this work from a business perspective? And B, is this how I want to spend my life? Time is life, right?
Mhm.
And you have to spend time working. So can you do it in a way that's better or more rewarding, or at least not so much of a drag? And a lot of companies, I think, are learning good lessons and are trying to figure out what the future of work means to them. There are absolutely some companies that have learned the wrong lesson or have totally ignored it or pretended like I don't have to acknowledge that a real significant psychic shift in how people think about business and their lives has happened over the last 2 years because I don't know, I wear a suit and a board elected me to be the CEO. So now I'm going to do this in my way as the highway. That's a terrible way to approach it. I think it presented an opportunity for people to rethink a lot of things about American working life. And I think that the people that take that to heart and really ask those questions and try to improve what's happening at their organization and in their business and really tries to improve the working lives of their employees, that's really going to have a positive effect for them, both just ethically and morally, but then also in real economic terms as well.
I mentioned that you're hiring and expanding. You've been doing that here lately. Have you had any trouble at all finding applicants? Have people been turning up? Have they been interested? Because we keep hearing about, it's hard to find workers.
We haven't had that experience. We've hired for 2 positions. If I'm thinking this correctly, 2 positions in the last 6 months. We just finished our last round of hiring, and it's not going to be long before we hire for another position. And even in a space where hiring can be challenging, which advertising, creative, technology, like there is a lot of competition for workers there. You know, we have, I think, built our job listings, and we offer, you know, a working lifestyle that I think is pretty attractive.
Yeah,
So
you know where I'm going with this, Josh. Did these did these applicants, did they know of how you do things? Were they aware of the culture? Did you get the sense?
You know, the strength of applicants, I think, in the last couple of years has there's been a change in that they are more choosy, and they really investigate the companies that they're interviewing with. So we would, in this last round of hiring, people came in and they said, oh, I read your blog post about the 10th anniversary of Swash Labs and what it means to you. Or I read the blog post you guys wrote about, was something about how you work, or that you did these other cultural things. But then we had a couple people say, I read your blog post about the 4-day work week, and that seems really attractive, and I'd like to talk more about it. So if you're applying for a job, I think it's always good to check out the company that you're applying for. And they came in prepared with that information and wanted to talk about what the reality of that looked like. And I thought that was really encouraging.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting, and it sets you apart, as you mentioned, from your competition. My last question, because I know you're a busy man.
I could talk about this all day.
So could I, obviously.
Yeah.
I've already taken more of your time than I told you I would. I'm curious, if I am working somewhere and this is not at all the culture, let's say, where I am, and I'm being hypothetical here in case my employer's listening. How do I nudge my management? How do I nudge my boss to at least even start to think about this kind of stuff?
We very much encourage people to think about this. And whether you're a manager or an employer or a CEO, I think it's really important to think about this if you are at all serious about business and the future of work. And if you're in business in the 21st century, you have to be thinking about the future of work because of how quickly things change. I've always been sort of bent this way. I was a terrible employee because I didn't like a lot about how corporate America worked. So I wanted to start a company where I would want to work at. And that's what I've been working on. But when we really started thinking about this, and I had started seeing news reports about trials of this happening in other countries, I went to the literature, right? I'm an old school like nerd. So I wanted to go see, what are people writing about this? What are they experiencing? And there is a terrific book by two guys named Will Strong and Kyle Lewis. It's called Overtime. And Overtime is a product of the research that these guys have done at a think tank in the UK called Autonomy. And all they think about is the future of work and like where the economic structure of the world is going. And they wrote a book that makes the case for a shorter work week. And it's all the stuff we've talked about, all the benefits that we hoped to derive are in that book. And now we're seeing those benefits happen for us as well. So if you're a manager, whether you're at the top or in the middle, or you're an employee and you want to start this conversation at work, my recommendation would be to go read that book. And like, I don't get a cut of this or anything. I just read it and loved it and really liked how they presented the case. And then understand in the structure as they presented in sort of the academic, it's a short book. It's not super nutritionally dense. It's not like a textbook, but it will tell you how to think about what they are talking about in the context of where you work. And if you can take that and it'll give you the tools, I think, to be able to begin that conversation where you work, and whether you are at the bottom of an organization or in the middle or at the top. I really encourage everyone to look into this and to think about it.
And there's nothing wrong when you read a book like that with, when you're done, just kind of leaving it sitting around the office, maybe on someone's desk. And I know it's not your typical revenue stream there, Josh, but I am betting that you could probably make some money by just having people send you their boss's email address so that you can send them your blog post. I bet you do very well there, just to kind of anonymously say, hey, just thought you might want to take a look at this. Josh Berthroom, founder of Swash Labs in Denton, Texas, who has gone fully remote with his workforce there and has gone to the 4-day work week and is doing better than ever. Listen up, all you employers out there. This may be the wave of the future. Josh, thank you for taking the time with us. I really appreciate it.
Jason, thank you. And I'd love to come back and talk about this anytime.